let's say that being outspoken is not really appreciated there. So I'm gonna talk about the reason why probably I will never work for a Japanese company in Japan. So I've been working at North American companies for past few years, and there are sometimes people commenting like, "Oh, would you want to go back to Japan, or would you want to live in Japan?" And my answer is usually yes. Like I actually want to live in Japan, but if I need to work for a Japanese company with really not well balanced, if work and life balance is not really achievable, or if working condition is really not really that great, and if I cannot maintain my emotional well-being while working at a Japanese company, then I'd rather not live in Japan. I'd rather live in, let's say, like other countries. And so that has been my answer. Whenever I get asked questions about whether I wanted to going back to Japan, and the reason why I would say so is because the Japanese working environment is a little different than the ones from, let's say, Western companies, like companies in the United States, Canada, UK, Germany, France, Switzerland. And then of course working environment, working conditions would be of course different if you're working at American company versus if you're working in German company. For example, in United States, usually you get like 2 weeks vacations, and if you're lucky you could get 3 weeks vacation. In Canada it's kind of same, but in Germany, let's say, they usually get 4 weeks vacation as a default. If you're in Austria, then you're gonna get minimum 5 weeks vacations. So what about Japan? Japanese companies usually give them 10 days or 2 weeks paid vacation, but there are so many articles recently posted online that I read like a few days ago that probably like only 30% of people who are entitled to get 10 days or 2 weeks of paid vacations actually use that all. So that means only 30% can actually take 10 days of vacations, and the rest of the 70% of people, they don't use it. Maybe they use only half, maybe 5 days a year. And that's really crazy to think about if you're coming from different culture, if you're coming from a different environment. So I'm here in Canada now, and I think I'm pretty fortunate to have 4 weeks paid vacations. Previous company I had 3 weeks, but I know some of the even if big companies, one of the big four, let's say Amazon, they don't give out 4 weeks vacations to employees. It's because of their policy. Whereas in Facebook is also one of the big four companies. They give employees unlimited paid vacations. So it's based on as needed basis. And so I think it's really great. And so I have 4 weeks. If I go back to Japan, I probably won't be able to get like 3 weeks even, probably 2 weeks. If I'm super lucky, maybe 3 weeks, but it's really hard to take it because there's so much of a peer pressure in the environment. Think about environment where you're working with the people, managers who don't have understanding of maintaining emotional well-being. Their focus is a little more biased and unbalanced. Their focus is surely on staying at office as long as possible, or basically pleasing their bosses for the sake of their own performance and evaluation, not for the sake of a company's actual, the business and outcome. And so their way of business practice is a little different than Western ways, and their metrics for their performance is a little different as well. So some of the metrics for their performance would be like how long they stay in the office, or like how hard they appear to be working hard. It's not really about quantifiable numbers that they are shooting for. It's a little more, I would say, ambiguous, and I would say a little bit, more toward like attitude. And by attitude, it's not even like, really efficient and effective, productive attitude. It's really more about, oh yeah, I don't know how to say, but it's kind of like, you need to commit yourself and then show your, let's say, it's kind of like coming from an old Edo era, the Bushido kind of a spirit, but you need to commit yourself to, your boss, and you need to show that you are loyal. You need to show you're loyal to your company, and it's really, you need to really, it's something that this phrase exists in Japanese but not in English, but Japanese people need to kind of gauge their boss's mood, their boss's thinking, and they cannot really, from Western standard, I would say there are certain principles that they go by, some companies they go by, and one of them is like authenticity or like honesty. But in Japan, honesty or authenticity are not as valued as other attributes like being loyal. And I don't know what that means in Japanese context, but it means like loyal to their bosses, their companies, and they don't necessarily want to say something that is just, let's say that being outspoken is not really appreciated there. Being outspoken and having a legitimate arguments about some of the business practices, probably you won't get treated reasonably there, depending on the companies. But most of the traditional Japanese companies, they don't like outspoken individuals, and that's the reason why it's really hierarchical. It's not flat structure. Organizations and management is really like top to down, and they do also micromanagement. And so you get the idea that basically traditional manufacturer company or financial industry, where they don't have they don't provide much of flexibility for employees to work on their own projects and stuff, and then their performance, part of their performance is evaluated based on how long or how hard boss thinks you're working in the office. So if you go home before your boss goes home, then that's gonna create some of the problem, So, and then only 2 weeks vacation, and then only 30% of people can take it, and definitely they're lacking this emotional well-being part. When they commit at least more than half of your lifetime, right? If you're sleeping at 24 out of 24 days, in the 24 hours, you probably sleep like 7-8 hours, and after that, you have a lot of working on errands, cooking and eating, taking shit, commuting, and that'll take probably 3 hours, 4 hours, and then the rest, most of people spend time in office, working for a company, working for somebody else, or working for yourself. But more than half the lifetime they spend, they're basically committing themselves to one of the most unreasonable, the agenda, like business agenda. Because if you're working for a company, you're working for company's business objective, and to do that, in Japan, there are many ways to do it. Emotionally, like, while achieving work and life balance, like in Europe, or you can do it in Japanese extreme way, where you don't give a fuck about your work and life balance. And the term called black company in Japan, basically those black companies don't pay for overtime labor, or they basically there are so many people who are committing suicides from working in black companies, where they did crazy amount of overtime, maybe like 100 hours a month overtime, or maybe like 150 or even 200 hours back, maybe 10 years ago. But anyways, that's the whole like I just gave you provided you guys subsets of so many other reasons why I don't want to work for Japanese companies. It's because I don't want my life fucked over, and I don't want to work for a company while not being able to achieve or have really nice personal life. And I'm not here to live. I'm not here living in this world to work for a company who doesn't give a fuck about me. I'm basically living my life to live, not to work, right? So you really need to think about, why. You need to ask yourself a question like, why are you working? Are you working to live, or are you working to work, or are you living to work? Some of the I would say like many Japanese people get trapped into thinking like, oh yeah, after university I need to work, and I need to work 40 years for this company until I get retired. I retire, and while working in a company I don't have much freedom. Maybe 5 days vacation. It's normal if you work in Japanese companies, and you can never take 5 consecutive vacation days in Japan. That's another really shitty things about working in a Japanese company. But anyways, I'm gonna stop here. This is one of the reasons why. These are only subsets of reasons why I don't want to work for Japanese companies. Life is too short, and life is really short. So if your life is either super boring or full of adventures, and I'd rather live my life full of adventures with short years than longer years with boring and really how do I say I don't want to live like I don't want to live like I'm like my freedom and my life is being shackled. I want to get freedom, abundance, and I want to explore as much as possible, and emotionally stable, happy, full, and just don't want to be like soul crushing, like boring, and like sometimes if it's too boring, you feel too guilty or too bad for yourself because you just cannot commit yourself on this task because you're not either interested or bored or not passionate, and even if you're making money, sometimes it doesn't make you happy, right? So that's something that I want to avoid. Last thing that I want to do is to make money for something that I never want to do, or something, make money to pay for the medical bill, which is caused by working shit tons of hours at work at the company. Many people are doing that in Japan. They get sick because they do overtime, like 100 hours a month, and they need to pay for medical bill. To do that, they need to have income. So to do that, they need to work. It's a vicious cycle there. So when I was 18, when I graduated from high school in Japan, I was using a train. A train system is really accurate in Japan, and many people use a train to commute to high schools and universities, even those employees as well. So I was using that in the morning and nighttime. So I was experiencing morning and evening rush, commute rush, and I was really pushed into a packed train where there's no personal space, and then you can see old salaryman guys really disgusting, exhausted and hopeless, and just soulless face, extremely tired, extremely I would say depressed. There's no lights in their eyes, there are no goals. I can tell that they're just being shackled in 9 to 5 corporate job. They don't have any other choices, and I'm pretty sure I didn't want to be like that. Like, I didn't want to spend like 40 years commuting in that like freaking super packed, jammed up train every single day from 8 to maybe 8 p.m. I don't know, some people go home like 10 p.m. super tired, sleeping in a train. Like I was feeling like what the heck is wrong with these people? Like, why do they not go home by like 7 p.m.? They're going home like 11 p.m. And like there are two traffic rushes in the evening. One, first one is around like 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. and the second rush is like around 11 because the last train. And I was like, holy fuck, how do they like have a really nice balanced life? What if they have families at home 10 p.m. 11 p.m. they are probably having dinner without dad? That's kind of sad. That's what I thought. So I definitely didn't want to do that, and didn't want to be if I spend like more than half a year or 1 year commuting in that super busy train, I thought I'm gonna be super depressed, and like my life, emotional being, it's gonna like subconsciously those things is gonna slowly kick in before I notice it, and before before I knew, I'll be kind of like a cog, social cog for the company. I'll be like a work dog, like pretty much like I would have been Dore. But anyway, so that's the reason why I decided to escape from Japanese social system, and I got a bachelor degree at Canadian University in STEM field, and I'm having really good work-life environment with lots of freedom, abundance, and I'm still on my own journey to achieve more, more abundance and personal freedom. And so I'm shooting to get 5 weeks or 6 weeks paid vacation, and I want to explore this world as much as possible, and I would rather spend time with something that I want to do than just working overtime for the sake of making money. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. This is just a snippet of just only parts of Japanese working environment. It's even worse, some people committing suicides, and the big company definitely getting into trouble, like legal trouble. Companies are being pretty lazy and abusive regarding how to treat their employees in Japan, and that should be fixed. And I never really want to work for Japanese companies who are practicing traditional Japanese work environment. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. Mata ne.